I should like that. I do. I'll finish your yeah.
She lives in
Oh, we got it.
Where's GM?
He had to go to his dentist. He had a cold last week. And went for stitches this afternoon.
Claire, we're getting started. We'll get started. Welcome everybody to the February 3rd Board of Trustees meeting at the Village of Flower Hill. Let's please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Dr. LaCour.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Perfect.
It's me. Perfect.
You are. I'd like to welcome everybody to our Board of Trustees meeting. Last month, I briefly discussed the hospital modernization plan from St. Francis Hospital, and the hospital is kind enough to come now to make a more formal presentation of their modernization plan and to answer any questions from the Board of Trustees or any questions from the residents. And just remember, there is no building application made yet to the village, so anything that is said here is, I guess, not an official building application. So there's nothing for the Board of Trustees currently to assess or review. So I just wanted to make that statement. I'll hand you the floor, Dr. LaCour.
Good evening, everyone. I'd just like to take the opportunity to thank Mayor Rosenbaum and the Village Board of Trustees for giving us the opportunity tonight to do an initial presentation on our master facilities plan to address the modernization of St. Francis Hospital. Christine Flaherty, who is our Vice President of Facilities at Catholic Health, will be following up with me in terms of the presentation. Our modernization plan is really aimed at four basic things. This agenda outlines what Christine will be reviewing, but we're recognized for great care at St. Francis Hospital. And we have not done a major facility adjustment in 20 years since the Nevada facility. And what we would like to do with this modernization is make our facilities more contemporary and be consistent with the excellent care that our colleagues provide. The facilities plan has been designed to preserve the historic chapel, which is the center of our campus. It's the fulcrum of our mission, and it's a guiding light for all of our colleagues. The initial tenet of our facility plan is to decrease traffic and congestion to the campus. By doing that, the way we're going to do that is to move physician ambulatory services off campus to 2200 Northern Boulevard and the Nevada Center. Very important to decrease the amount of traffic and the congestion and the parking challenges on campus to be able to do this. The modernization plan will allow us to take down Visa Pavilion, which is a dated structure from the 1960s, and replace it after it is demolished. First it has to be empty, but then demolished, and replace it with a new patient pavilion linked to DeMattis Pavilion. You know, St. Francis is the most recognized hospital for quality, safety, and patient experience on Long Island, and pretty much one of the highest in Metro New York. Ranked in the top 50 hospitals in the nation in 8 services, including heart, neurology, orthopedics, diabetes, gastroenterology, urology, pulmonary medicine, and geriatrics. And persistently in the top 10 hospitals in Metro New York and New York State. We are the safest hospital in New York State. We have had more safety grades of A than any hospital in New York State since the inception of the leapfrog grading system over a decade ago. And CMS, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, recognizes St. Francis as a 5-star facility. And we just underwent our survey for our 5th consecutive Magnet designation. Magnet is an organization that certifies excellence in nursing care. And when we look at the staff that drives our culture and also helps us to deliver this, it's our nurses. Our nurses are the unifying force for our campus. And what we want to do going forward is create a facility, predominantly private rooms, that can build on the excellence in quality, safety, and satisfaction we have at St. Francis. St. Francis provides a significant amount of economic activity to Long Island and the region we serve. Catholic Health provides a little over $5 billion of economic activity, and St. Francis is more than 30% of that benefits that is provided to the community in terms of patients served, tax dollars generated, employment, employees, and community benefits and investments. And now I'm going to hand it off to Christine so she can further review the facility plan.
Thank you, Dr. McCord. Good evening. Thank you, Mayor and Board of Trustees and all of the community here from Flower Hill. It's wonderful to be here this evening. My name is Christine Flaherty. I'm Senior Vice President of Real Estate Development and Facilities for Catholic Health. So first, we wanted to give a status update related to the modernization work that's not in Flower Hill, but actually supportive of helping the campus of St. Francis decongest. We're building a state-of-the-art outpatient cardiology center as well as an imaging center for cardiac care at 2200 Northern Boulevard in East Hills. This is just a few miles down the road, and this will really allow the patient population that's coming for appointments for the follow-up on checkup, instead of coming into the campus and off the campus within a day, they'll be going to that location in lieu of the St. Francis main campus. This really has been an overall trend in healthcare where, the ongoing visits don't need to happen at a hospital. They can happen in a doctor's office. And so this will also allow us to, in the long term, decant the Visa Pavilion. Construction started on this work, and we're expected to open both sets of services, the outpatient imaging as well as the cardiology services this fiscal year of 2025. And we're incredibly excited about this work. This shows you a picture of the lobby. The furniture has not arrived in this picture yet. But this will relocate 30 physicians, as well as their daily patient appointments off the campus, and redirect 350 vehicles daily into the campus. So we really feel like this is a really improvement for the campus. We also are in the final phase of getting our state CON, Certificate of Need application approved, for a cardiac CT service to be provided at the DeMattis Center next to our CACT team, the heart failure team. And this radiology, and I'm not a doctor, an engineer, but this service is really vital to help our patients get the best diagnostic vision of what their needs are. And this also will further reduce that imaging from being on the campus to being in an outpatient setting, more convenient for the patient and more convenient for the doctor as well. So now we're going to talk about, today is an early phase. This is the first of many conversations with the community. But really what we did want to spend time on, because this is a very highly complex master facility plan, is setting out the goals of the plan and what our project objectives have been. Really today we are operating on the campus at 95% capacity occupancy. So an incredibly high occupancy campus. In certain surge moments, it's even higher than that. And unfortunately, less than 10% of the medical surgical rooms, so if you're not in an ICU, that's what the medical surgical area, less than 10% are private rooms. So I know I don't like sharing a private room. It's great to have a private patient room, but at St. Francis, the last 20 years ago, many rooms were being built as semi-private rooms. And so we definitely know from an experience perspective, from best practice perspective, and from a patient risk infection perspective, we really want to transform the campus into private patient rooms to the greatest extent possible. So now I'm going to walk through a little bit of our evaluation and studies that have been happening around the site and as we looked at the existing campus. Also, I want to note that any new construction, State Department of Health mandates private patient rooms if you're going to make that investment in a hospital campus. So our square footage is currently capped by the village zoning code based upon the last modernization that occurred in early 2000. And we also recognize there's no additional parking capacity within the campus with such a high census and a high occupancy rate. We realize we have significant space constraints within this campus, but even as we looked at all of those challenges, we wanted to ensure that we're being as conscious and sensitive of the community we are surrounded by and are a good neighbor. And we wanted to have our new patient care pavilion to be as close as possible to the existing inpatient areas. That's the best flow for the providers, for the patients, and it's the best option to ensure that we have a seamless transition for any new patient pavilion. We also knew we had to retain all existing parking because it's already a constrained site. And as we looked at the topology of the campus, we really recognized the heart of our campus of the St. Francis Chapel. And so we wanted to preserve that structure and really modernize around that structure since it's one of the many parts at St. Francis. So as we looked into the site plan, and I know this is hard to read, this presentation is on our website, so you feel free to open it and look at it in the future. But what this graphic shows you is a little deeper dive of our evaluation of the campus itself. Everything in gold are areas that we recognize we want to retain, we'll have to reinvest in to keep them modern, and we're keeping in place. So this kind of, and in here we also have listed the age of that facility, in case you're wondering, and just ongoing modernizations that may occur within those buildings and structures that we are looking to retain. In blue is the chapel, and we put it as really something we're seeing as a preservation because it's a community asset. There's mass every morning at 8 o'clock. I was reminded it's St. Blaise Day. Looking out for my throat. And so we saw that as a community asset that we would retain. And then in the upper left, right is the fuchsia, that's Visa Pavilion right now. And that's what we are looking long-term to decant and demolish. In green is the South Annex structure, which we need to do minor renovations on to keep going during the course of a major construction project because of space constraints on campus. So in the long term, we are going to be looking to remove South Annex, but we really can't do it until we have a new patient care pavilion because of the amount of square footage on the campus and the needs for specific facility operations to be on the campus supporting the campus itself. On the right column, I'm not going to read it all. It tells you how many square feet some of these structures are and some of those items that I identified earlier. Okay, and so we've also been securing properties on Oak Tree Lane, and this shows you a snapshot of all of the parcels we have secured on Oak Tree Lane. The thinking associated with Oak Tree Lane was to really expand our acreage and address zoning limitations, which with these properties secured, we now have over 18 acres. That additional acreage allows for improvements without increasing our building coverage percentage. It also increases the distance between residences and where our hospital structures are. We also did want to point out our modernization goals, our objectives. The main thing, as Dr. Lepore mentioned, is we really recognize we want a patient care pavilion close to where the rest of the structures are, and Visa Pavilion is to be removed. And a new patient care pavilion is going up on that footprint and within our current property line, not inclusive of the Oak Tree properties we've secured. We also are looking to maintain Oak Tree Lane in its current location. We have no intention of trying to shut Oak Tree Lane down. We thought that absolutely made sense to not even try to broach anything that would in any way impact the residents of Flower Hill. We also are looking closely at the Oak Tree homes and looking at considerations that are only residentially compatible uses in the midterm on Oak Tree Lane. Example, we've done this at other hospitals across our system. Examples of that, today we have some of our sisters in one of the homes. We also have had our providers who are on call stay in the homes for emergency or on-call sleeping arrangements. And so those are the types of uses that we would be looking to consider. And we also are looking to ensure that 150 Port Washington Boulevard is not impacted by our modernization efforts. So the other kind of recent series of dialogues have occurred due to, actually I'm going to go back in the slideshow to kind of, when you look at the campus of St. Francis, we have the two main entryways, the one where our light is that most people are going into, but we also have a northern entrance, which kind of has a unique challenge in that turning left into it can be a dangerous situation. We've had multiple accidents that have occurred at that northern entrance, and based on some letters to state DOT concerning these concerns, DOT started coming to us and telling them about some plans on traffic improvements that they want to make surrounding the St. Francis campus. And so I just wanted to give that context before we got to the next slide. And so we're in the process also ourselves of evaluating the traffic and parking collection data that we've done where it's an ongoing basis. And State DOT is making some improvements to certain areas of the traffic, but what we did learn and we hadn't realized is there is an ability to put a light at an entrance, but it's something that actually we would have to ask for, and we didn't realize that. We thought it was something that DOT would do. And so that's not fully resolved, but we look forward to working with Flower Hill and DOT on understanding what the options are to kind of improve the safety for the workforce, for the residents, for the patients in and around our campus along Port Washington Boulevard. And so as we look at our next steps, we're very early in the phase. We're still in what's called concept design, and there's 4 phases of design. So we're very early on in the phase, and our next goal is to get through schematic design. And so with that, it's complicated, and we don't have a detailed schedule to reveal to you today about our milestones, because we need to go through our governance process, through the schematic design, and once we have kind of the governance approvals associated with that schematic design, we would then be able to bring that to the residents and the community. Our governance process is inclusive of multiple board committees, the real estate facilities committee, the capital committee, the finance committee, our entire full board. So it is a complicated, ongoing discussion, and there's clearly the community here, as well as working with the State Department of Health as part of the planning process. As I mentioned earlier, this presentation is up on our website. The website link is here. I think the mayor has also shared that website link with the residents through his communications. And so we'll have this up again on our website after today's presentation. If there was something you could bring on the screen. I think we are, I want to thank you for your time today. And I think this is the end of our presentation.
Perfect, thank you. I'll start with any questions from the board, and then I'll turn it over to the residents. Mr. Lewandowski?
So with aggregating all the lots, including the lots from the Oak Tree Lane, is there an effort to gain ability to build a bigger building than currently is?
So in order to accommodate private patient rooms, and the space required of private patient rooms, the new patient care pavilion would anticipate it to be larger than the visit pavilion. That's correct.
And is that in footprint, or is that in footprint and height?
It's both.
Okay. And then what is the long-term plan for the south end?
After a pavilion is completed, our space plan would allow us to accommodate the program that's in the south annex into either the pavilion or other areas that empty through the planning process. It's quite a jigsaw puzzle,
Right.
figuring out what's best to go where, but we've taken into account what is in south annex into the space needs.
Right, but after that point, after transition, what's the plan for that?
Oh, for that location, it would return back to the parking lot that it had been before.
Do you have a schedule?
Not yet, because we have to get through the concept into schematic, and we really have to get into a schematic phase where everybody has finalized and vetted the approval of the affordability of the patient care pavilion.
Okay, fair enough. Do you have a sense of how long you're going to spend on schematics? So I mean, I'm just trying to get a sense of when you might break ground on something like this.
It's too early for us to say
That's fine.
that.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Do you think we'll see a building application in 2025?
No.
Okay.
No.
Just wanted to ask the question.
Is some of that hinged on that you're still completing the work off campus? Is that part of what's?
No, I think we changed some of the programmatic goals after the first flush of concept numbers came in. And so we had to kind of go back to the drawing board a little bit and think through a different series of uses, but in all cases, we always had the private patient beds as the number one. So that's been a little bit of the restudy as well as, and that also resulted in us needing to study the existing campus footprint a little bit. How do you phase some needs there? So it's incredibly, even though we might not be in the city, it feels like we're in the city as far as how congested and tight everything is.
Any other board questions before I turn it over to residents? Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Maven. I live on Crab Apple Road, which is right down the street from the plan. So I have a couple of questions because I'm not understanding the actual homes. In the diagram you showed the purple houses you now own, it looks like there were 4, but I read in the literature that you have 8. So who is living, how many homes do you now own on your side of Oak Tree? And who is living in them? Boarders? Are they empty?
It's a combination. So you'll,
There are four houses outlined in purple, but
Christine, show the others. There's another slide.
Yeah, there's a slide.
Oh, no, that's the
No,
right
this is
slide.
the
Sorry, I
slide.
couldn't see.
but I read on your literature that you now have purchased 8. So what,
so there's 6 houses on the south side of Oak Tree Lane that we own.
6?
6.
Okay.
And there's 4 on the north side of Oak Tree Lane that we also own.
Across the street on Oak Tree.
Correct.
There are 10 houses.
That's correct.
Who is in these houses now?
It's a combination.
Oh,
Some are the individuals that we bought the house from, so we allowed time for them to transition.
okay.
Are they
Um,
renting the homes from you?
I don't want to disclose their specific
Okay,
business.
but we live on Oak
arrangement.
Tree Lane, maybe the one house on Oak Tree.
How about we let his question be answered first, and then we'll call on you next.
All right, so there's 10 houses. You have some of them that the people you bought them from are still living there on a whatever arrangement. And then you have some of them that you have doctors on call, nurses on call.
Right now, we don't have any doctors or nurses on call in any of the homes. We have a employee of the health system living in one of them. We have our sisters living in one of them as well. And we're evaluating others to determine what would be acceptable uses. And one example would be doctors or nurses that are on call.
So in the future, next 25 years, are these always going to be homes? Is there any point where these 6 and 4 homes on either side of Oak Tree Lane are not going to be private homes?
We're not ready to reveal that piece of the plan. We, in the short term and the midterm, during construction of a pavilion, we would anticipate utilization of those homes. And the last phase would be considering something
Okay, so let me
on the
follow.
south side of Oak Tree,
Short and midterm is what time period roughly? in here?
5 to 10 years.
5 to 10 years.
Correct.
So after short and midterm, let's just take the bottom edge of that, let's say it's 5 years. So it's possible that in 6 years, you want to convert at least one, if not both sides of Oak Tree Lane where there are presently houses, into a hospital facility.
I think it's too early for us to make that stated.
So I'm going to help answer the question. They can't do anything with those properties that is not currently allowed by code. If they wanted to turn that into a hotel, can't do it. They want to turn it into a parking pavilion, can't do it. They want to turn it into another tower, they can't do it.
Can they?
Let me finish. Let me
multiple
finish.
properties there? They can't.
I'm going to finish first. We have zoning code. We have our building code. They can buy the entire village if they want. They can't, any entity can buy any homes in our village. They can't just by right change the use of the property. There's a whole zoning process, planning process, and a board process. So they can
apply for that.
they can speculatively buy whatever they want. You can speculatively buy anything you want. You would need all the boards to agree to make that happen. And I can't predict what's going to happen, but from my perspective, I'm not interested, I'm only speaking for myself as the mayor, I'm not interested in changing any residential property in this village to anything but residential. And I've stated it for the last couple of years, and I'll keep on stating it.
My last part of the question, I don't want to have any more time, is that these houses, okay, now are either occupied or not occupied by a variety of people. quite frankly, some of them are eyesores. Okay? I mean, some of them are the original houses, some of them look like there's nobody living in there for sure. Some of them are run down. I think you had to do something already in response to how bad they look. And some of them are beautiful new houses, not many, probably that young man over there. But some of them are fancy new houses, maybe one or two. So they're really eyesores. And you're saying some of them are being basically occupied now by, I won't say boarders, but people certainly that are living there. So what can be done to make that block look nice again? Because it doesn't look nice now. And you won't pay those homes.
Our goal is to maintain the block. So we're happy to take incremental steps on specific requests, but I'd rather not do it in a big group setting, to be frank. So
I don't want to be frank, but
we
I,
also rotate, our safety and security team also rotates through that area, recognizing these are properties that we can.
I live on Oak Tree.
Shelley.
I raise my hand. And it is an eyesore. Going down, I'm embarrassed. That first house on Port and Oak Tree has been deserted for how many years? 10, 15 years? And you've done nothing to improve that. The house next door to me is empty, there's no floor. And you cleaned it up because we made a big issue about it. You call yourself a good neighbor. Do the right thing, clean up the block.
I'm gonna let you speak.
Yeah, I would say, I don't think you're being completely transparent. It's not acceptable to me for you to say a midterm or short-term plan as to what you're gonna do, as that gentleman said, with these residential homes. So I appreciate that St. Francis is a great facility and you're a great hospital. No one would think otherwise. But we live on 10 Oak Tree Lane. I think we're the only people that now live on Oak Tree Lane. I think you own most of the houses. When we have friends, I'm a lawyer, I have clients come over, they come up Oak Tree Lane, it's an embarrassment. The block is an embarrassment. I don't know where we're living. You cleaned up the house next to us, but it's completely vacant. Like you mow the lawns, but it's like an abandoned house. The house, that's 20 Oak Tree Lane, 30 Oak Tree Lane, maybe occasionally you have people come there. The house on the corner of Wood Hill and Oak Tree Lane, that's north, that's been vacant for so long now. It's not maintained, it's an eyesore. Like Shelley said, the house on the corner on Port Boulevard, you don't maintain. There are many houses that no one is living on Oak Tree Lane. So my point is, are you gonna fix those up and then rent them or resell them? Like, what are you gonna do with those properties in your midterm and long-term plan? You're just gonna keep them vacant? Like the house next to it is completely vacant. Like you mow the lawn, but like we're living next to an abandoned house. The house catty corner from us is an abandoned house. You're not transparent. So have you made arrangements with so some houses are vacant. I know one house is you have some sisters living in. Other houses, you made an arrangement. I know you bought them because you made arrangements for the current owners to stay in those houses. They rent them from you. How long do they stay? Like, what is your actual plan on Oak Tree Lane? You're gonna keep it residential, but you're just gonna keep those homes empty and abandoned? You're gonna fix them up, make it nicer for us to look at? What's your plan for Oak Tree Lane?
Our plan remains to consider residentially compatible uses,
That's not telling me anything.
and we're assessing all of them for different things. We are not at a place where
What
we're ready to give you a detail.
Christine, I think what I'm hearing from some of the residents is that, if we're talking 5 years even, those houses are gonna just deteriorate.
Just sit there,
Obvious.
not work
Give me,
on?
Joel,
Sorry.
could we work together and come up with some kind of plan to do some beautification, do some landscaping, curtains in the windows, make these homes look like they're occupied homes? Wouldn't take a lot of effort. It'd be, more of a Hollywood stage set. It's the front of the house that could be fixed up a bit to look, because I understand what Joel is saying. I ride up and down my bike on Oak Tree all the time. And some of them are starting to look like you can see right through them because there's no curtains on the window, there's no blinds. You know, the last thing we want is to encourage squatters or to encourage vandalism because people know that somebody living on that block. So would that be something that you would consider to be a buffer between now and 5-10 years from now when those homes become something other than what they are now?
Yes, I think let's take this feedback. This is very helpful feedback, and let us evaluate each one and think through what the concept beautification plan and request for occupancy for certain things, which would have to go through request, unless it was a permanent residential use. So we would identify what those potential things may or may not be.
It would almost be better if hospital staff were living in those houses that, staff that maybe need a place to live and work close to the hospital, want to live close to the hospital, can rent them for a couple of years until at least there's people, there's action, there's people taking care of it. There's flyers, I'm not laying on the lawn for 5 days. Those are the kind of things that I think a lot of the residents on Oak Tree are really concerned about.
All right, in order. Gentleman in blue, gentleman in the back, and then right in front.
Dan Learned, I live on, moving into 124 Woodhill. I'm hearing the concerns about the short-term appearance of the homes on Oak Tree and the short and mid-term plan. There are some of us that are more concerned about the long-term plans. And those of us and my neighbors and a lot of us have young kids. And, I see St. Francis, and I see the parking situation and the congestion and the cars lined up on Port Boulevard. Parking is completely out of hand. And that's only going to continue. I understand the plan of moving facilities off site, but it's going to continue. There's going to be doctors, there's going to be patients, there's going to be employees. That lot fills up very quickly in the morning. The employees take the doctor's spots, the patients take the employee spots, and what we're afraid of is Oak Tree turning into an extension of that. And these homes are not paid, above market to be maintained as a house for the sisters. They were bought to be demolished and the footprint expanded. So I don't think that transparency is required. I think that you could see the writing on the wall. That being said, what we're worried about is cars and traffic and everything now that's on Port Boulevard, on Oak Tree and Crabapple and Woodhill and all the streets becoming parked up, and our kids who are riding bikes, now we live in a hospital. Now, the mayor addressed zoning, that nothing can be changed. However, that's absolutely not true. And if you read the code, the zoning requires notification of homes within like 200 feet. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is that correct? She knows. So 200 feet on these homes, which is R1 and R2 zoning, doesn't go very far, right? I mean, one half of Woodhill is R1, the other half is R2. We're talking acre and half acre plots. So the frontage on the streets is over 100 feet, which means that the zoning notification is really one and a half homes. And on one side you have St. Francis, and on the other side you have Port Boulevard. So how many homes are really required? And if I'm wrong about any of this, please stop. So that is our concern. And you can make a presentation and say that putting a gas station on the corner of Elder Fields and Manhasset would be like really convenient, and that they're doing great things in the world, but they don't want it here. They don't want a gas station on the corner. And just like you might not want, an office space 3 doors down. Now, what goes on inside the walls, I think for us, a lot of us, I can't speak for everybody, but for me and my neighbors, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. If you want to build single patient rooms, if you want to build a hotel, it really doesn't affect us. But when things start to spill out into the neighborhood and affect the streets, the local streets and the traffic, that has a major negative impact, obviously. And, recently, not that recently, the dealer track site on New Hyde Park Road was up for sale. And I think it was NYU or one of the hospital systems made a bid to acquire it. And it was rejected by the Village of North Hills. And the main reasoning, from what I understand, is that the Village of North Hills code requires 11 parking spots per 1,000 square feet of office space, and they could not comply with it. And that's on the corner of New Hyde Park Road and South Service Road, not Woodhill Lane and Oak Tree or whatever. You know, I mean, so you're talking about putting in what happens inside the walls and even expanding the walls, even if it's ultimately expanded to the south side of Oak Tree and the walls are pushed back. But once you start bringing traffic into Oak Tree, I don't foresee like a good solution where you have some sort of multi-use whatever on the north side of Oak Tree, and that's the problem. I don't know if we have to change our zoning rules and our zoning whatever, but I don't see how you could have a mixture of residential and commercial on the same street essentially.
So right now, Dr. Carl, I'll leave speaking second.
The south side.
Joel, this is my meeting.
So we,
Talk first.
the first phase of this project was to decompress the campus. We have realized, because of our popularity, that we have grown and we needed to do something to move services off campus to another site. We are creating ambulatory sites all over Long Island. 2200 Northern Boulevard in East Hills is one of our major ambulatory sites. With the moves we're making related to the 30 positions, the associated income, it's going to take down at least 400 automobile visits for me conservatively a day to these physician office sites that will no longer be there. So first and foremost, we recognize everybody's concern around that. And that's the first thing we're doing to address it. The feedback about the homes is taken. We will, as good neighbors, address that. In terms of selecting a site for a new patient facility, and this is not to grow the number of cars coming to the campus, but this is to allow us to provide more and more complex services to the patients that we already have. We looked at multiple sites on the campus. We elected not to do anything with Oak Tree. We elected to take down a structure which is dated, which needs revision, and put up a new structure that will allow us to achieve our goals in terms of modernization, but at the same time is remote from any of the homes on the south side, on the west side, and now we have homes on Oak Tree that are buffered to those to the north. We don't, as Christine said, intend to disrupt Oak Tree in any way. When we talk about a 5 to 10 year period, those homes we're going to require for residential use. Sisters, other sisters, priests, advanced practice providers, not necessarily doctors, not necessarily, traditional nurses, but physician assistants or nurse practitioners that might be on call for the hospital. Okay? So we need all those homes for residential use. So again, the plan is not to increase traffic along Oak Tree Lane. What I would like to do is slow down traffic on Port Washington Boulevard. Because I went by the Village Hall tonight, and so I had to take a left-hand turn to get back. I felt like I was taking my life in my hands. So I hope that you don't let your kids go anywhere near Port Washington Boulevard. But this is our intent, to address some of the challenges that the hospital has, and at the same time, make things better for the community.
Can I just want to interject on the topic of traffic? So is there a current report that makes that analysis of the reduction in cars? And has that been validated at some level? And I guess my point is, when at what point can you, by making the moves you're currently making and will complete in the next 1 to 4 years or 5 years, whatever that timeline is, when would you be able to get empirical evidence that you reduce the traffic?
So we had conducted a current state traffic study both during the school season as well as the summer season. And then we also have compared the data around the patient visit population in the VISA pavilion, as well as the providers, the 30 providers that are immediately going to go to the offsite location. And that's where the quantities show 350 to 400 vehicle visits per day. To your question about timing of when we could have the empirical data comparing that will be after the site is gone live and operational for a certain period of time, that we can actually really see that traffic reduction associated with that.
I'm thinking that when you look at the decanting process from VISA, we'd probably be ready for another study second quarter of 2026.
Yeah, I think having some intermediate data to at least share with the community would be helpful.
Absolutely.
It's like a two-part question, kind of. So the first question is, and this is just, maybe I missed this or didn't understand it properly, but is the reason you need those properties on Oak Tree right now, because you need more acreage in order to be able to build more square footage on your current campus? Is that how I'm understanding correctly, or?
That's correct. We're capped by the acreage.
Two acre you own?
Yes.
Okay. And so then, my second question then is, like you both spoke well, obviously you've done loads of research on this, and I know you're telling us certain things that you're gonna take back and the things that you want us to hear. I think my concern, which echoes with the gentleman on Woodville Lane's concern, is that, okay, well, you talk about this very near term, 1 to 5 years, then you talk about the medium term, 6 to 10, whatever, and then the long term. Well, today it starts with Oak Tree, and tomorrow you're buying the properties on Woodville, and then you're going part of the crab apple in Northwoods. And sure, maybe that's 20, 25 years down the road. But in life, when you give somebody a little, they end up asking for a lot. And I think as a resident, I am concerned about that. Because you're not, I mean, again, the writing's on the wall, like you're not being transparent with us about what you actually want to do in 10, 15, 20 years. And if you're not actually telling us, well, obviously we're going to assume the worst. And that's really.
So I want to answer that as well as answer something else you mentioned earlier. Our intention, while the code may say 200 feet, or we're here today to talk to the whole community about what objectives we feel comfortable we're able to share. I know we don't have all the answers for you today, and it's a journey on our side to find a plan that is going to help us create the private rooms that we need for the patient population on the campus. We are happy to have ongoing discussions with the community to inform you of what we would hope to be able to achieve and take your feedback to that process, regardless of if you're 200 feet from our property line or not. So I do want to state that here so that that's why we have a website, maybe earlier than we should, because we're not really ready to give you all the answers, but we want to do this in a transparent process. We want to do this in a way that when we can share information, we share it, and to get your feedback clearly
I mean, this has been a complex process because we have to move things off campus and move other services like administration, like the sister's mother house that's in the other locations. So believe it or not, we've been working on this for 3 years just to decide that the first and foremost thing should be to decongest the campus by moving things off. The next thing is we need a new patient pavilion. How do we do it, and how do we position it in a way that replaces the current structure and also is fairly removed from the villagers? We don't anticipate to buy up the village. We only have so much money. And I don't know if you've looked at like the publicity around healthcare lately, but over 50% of the hospitals in New York State have no margin. So we had a given amount of capital to be able to spend to expand our geographic footprint from say 15 acres to 18 acres. If we were going to buy another home, there's one home there we would potentially consider buying on the south side of Oak Tree. But our plans right now, people have approached us. Our plans are not to buy any other homes than what we have, except maybe with the exception of that one on the south side of Oak Tree.
So I have an interest.
all of our energy right now is deciding what should be in this pavilion, and then getting the governance approvals through all these committees that Christine referenced, and then the financial approval to be able to go to the markets and be able to fund this. We have looked at various iterations of the programming for a new pavilion. And how many have we been through now? Multiple, yeah.
Including different locations, some
And
that
so
are further
we
west
think
on
something
campus.
sounds good with the inflation that's occurred recently, post-pandemic. I mean, there's only so much we're gonna be able to afford. So essentially, what we're trying to do is put in a pavilion ultimately that will allow us to be able to serve the complexity of our patients that increases every day. And also be able to have it be affordable.
So
And that's gonna take time.
I'm gonna interject for a second. Our code doesn't allow the hospital to use these residential properties, those square footage, to apply to the hospital zone. So the properties that they bought on Oak Tree, they can't use that zoning for the hospital. It's not allowed. They're buying these houses speculative. They can't buy our code, and our village attorney can confirm
So you
that.
need to first convert it to commercial use and then.
They
It has
can't,
to be
they,
the hospital district. It
hospital district.
has to
which
be the
is-
same district, yeah.
Please,
Yeah.
Mr. Blinkoff.
So just to clarify, what the code says that, just to back up from it, so there are different zoning districts within the village, one of them is the hospital district. So in the hospital district, which is where the hospital is, it says right now that the total building area occupied by all buildings now standing or hereafter erected in the district, the hospital district, whether at above or below grade, shall not exceed 1,017,271 gross square feet of building area, nor shall the total building coverage exceed 36.2% of the entire area of the district. So what the mayor is saying is that the hospital district does not include Oak Tree Lane. Those are all residential. So the discussion process that the representatives are having tonight may be that they're looking to expand their land mass. But as the code stands right now, nothing that's been purchased on Oak Tree Lane can be counted toward that expansion. It's residential.
But that's what they.
Joel,
I'm sorry.
Joel, you've spoken. He's going to speak. He's going to speak. This gentleman,
But this-
you're going to speak.
Does
So
that
I
apply
just
though?
want to finish the thought, if I can just finish the thought. The next thing that is in the hospital district that you won't find some of the other planning discussions that would go with other districts, is nothing can happen in the hospital district. No changes can happen without Board of Trustees approval. So this is a process that would have to come back to the board. So I expect that the next question will be, well, couldn't somebody ask to try to change a particular? People can ask for whatever changes they want for land use purposes, but that has to go through a process. And what I'm saying to you right now is that as the code stands right now, the purchase of the Oak Tree properties does not allow for any expansion for the use of the hospital as it's defined. There would need to be a very clear process. There's no application that the board is looking at right now, and from what I'm hearing, there's no application that will be coming to the board for at least a year. So as it stands right now, those properties are residential. They have to be residential, and they're going to stay residential. So I think the discussion process that was focused on what can be done to make sure that the neighbors, the people who live there, the residents who live there, can continue to live there and be comfortable and happy and understand that this is their neighborhood, that they want it to look like a neighborhood. I think that's the process that in the immediate and probably into the fairly distant future needs to be addressed.
But it might
Sorry,
not even be then that, then the next step then is, I guess, for the hospital to ask for those properties eventually to be added as part of the hospital district, right? I mean, that's.
I can't answer that question. They would have to answer that question.
Can you answer that question, or?
That would be an eventuality, but not at this time. We're not asking that right now.
Sure, not right now, but that is what you need
He's going
in order
next.
for you to be able to build, in other words. In order for you to be able
Building
to,
footprint, our building footprint, to be clear, the new pavilion is in the current meets and bounds, our current property, not anything on Oak Tree Lane, not any of the homes on Oak Tree Lane. There are other concerns we have with the campus, namely traffic and parking that has been brought up already today. And so I think those are the things that we know we would have to come to the village and come to the community and seek requests that all of you can provide us feedback on.
And I'll reiterate what I said earlier. I have no interest in changing residentially zoned properties to anything but residentially zoned properties. So I'm one of 7 votes, and I won't speak for the rest of the board, but it's not my interest in changing. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate your presentation. The accolades.
Dominic Ward, same.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, we don't need, no, we're not, this is,
forget it.
there's no, I don't need Dom today.
Okay, well, I do live in Flower.
Yes, you
I live
do.
on Walnut. We live on Walnut. The accolades that you showed, that's the job. You're supposed to be that good. It's easy. So I get it, and I appreciate that. Putting priests and nuns as an argument for the houses, I think that's distasteful. Because then you said, and then other practicing physicians or professionals. My point on this is Oak Tree lost its charm. No disrespect to those who were there and who were trying to preserve it. The houses are zombie houses. They're not well cared for. You can put a maintenance crew to plant flowers. It's not a resident. It's actually an embarrassment. To show us that you have both sides of Oak Tree already purchased, but for one, maybe free, I don't know, leads me to believe that 25 years ago when I moved here, this wasn't even a thought. Not a thought. And here we are, that road is gonna be demapped. Eventually, it will become part of the campus, eventually, because it makes sense. Because we took both sides of Oak Tree and we desensitized it. Because you will now have patients, you tell me no now, visiting. So now we have more car traffic. I don't know if you're aware of it, but in our village, cars fly through, finding a shortcut to avoid Port Washington Boulevard. So we're on our streets, and I can see these people, they don't live here. The traffic light is a result of people wanting to get to a place because they have an appointment. I wonder, all the accidents that occurred were actually residents. I doubt. We don't need a traffic light, we need less traffic.
You have the areas that you've identified. I had to take notes, and there's a lot here. I'm not gonna take up a lot of time tonight. But you've identified East Hills. Go to East Hills. They're ready for you. Go to the Madison Center. They need you. That pavilion that's gonna be built will be taller, sight lines above trees. It'll be illuminated. There'll be lights coming out of the windows for patients. I'm gonna be a patient one day, I get it, but not now. And I don't at all agree with the transparency you're showing. You can't answer the questions because you don't have the answers to the questions. But this happens with hospital campuses. I'm actually shocked to hear that the campus term is applying to Flower Hill. When you go to Maimonides in Brooklyn, they took over entire Flower. You go up and down, it's doctor. There's no one living there. The neighborhood is gone. That can't happen here. 25 years ago, we didn't have this. And it's gonna happen eventually because there's a desensitization, you become desensitized. And I don't wanna see Oak Tree go, and I really don't want to see practitioners in these houses, and we lose a sense of Flower Hill. There's other places for the success of the hospital. Decompressing the campus, all for it. But making it bigger is not what I like. The last thing I'm gonna say is that at one point, there was a parking structure that was temporary. It's still there. That was 12 years ago, if I'm right. I think that's the green structure you mentioned.
South Annex.
The South Annex.
It's not
the
a
green
parking,
structure. What is it?
it's a modular structure that,
Trailers.
it's a trailer.
Sorry, temporary, right?
It was supposed to be temporary 12 years ago.
I was right about that. That was what
You're
I
right.
said. Man is on earth temporarily. That can't be a decision that we agree to because it's never ending. Every time I turn on Crabapple, it's there. And I say to myself, 12 years have gone by already. That's the reason why we can't have this. And I know it's as of right, they can do it on their campus, and it's all part of the board or the trustees to agree. But, I really want to be careful about how we approach this. All eyes open.
Yes. You're next, Noel.
So you mentioned that there will be 400 fewer cars in phase one of this plan, right? And that's supposed to be a win. But that's to pave the way for the modernization. I'm not really quite sure I know what that means because what I heard is single occupied rooms, which I think are probably bigger revenue generators for the hospital. I'm sure they are. So you need another pavilion to house those additional patients. What's the net effect? How many more cars will that be? So we lose 400, but we gain how many? What's the expectation there? Has anybody done the
Christine,
math?
how many more beds are we looking at with
Net
the
increase.
new campus versus the current campus?
There's not a planned increase in bed count, it's that the double beds become single beds. So you have a semi-private room today, one of those beds goes to the new pavilion, and then you have another room that now could become a private room.
So the last
Driving that.
count I had was three
So
days.
State law, New York
But
State.
what's also driving it is being consistent with excellent care. So in terms of infection control, being in your own room is better. In terms of your own patient experience, being in your own room is better. The quality of care overall is better. So that's why we're committed to, once we put up a pavilion with a number of private rooms, then taking the Madison Center and those semi-privates can be converted to privates.
You don't have other options, I mean, fewer patients at this facility. I mean, I understand state law, but we don't really care, I don't really care about your modernization plans if it impacts the community, I really don't. I don't think anybody in this room does, actually. Because there are other options, and maybe.
Yeah, I think that's a very broad generalization. I care about the hospital and so don't speak for anybody but yourself,
I'll speak
please.
for myself.
Thank you.
I mean, if their modernization plans impact the quality of our life in this community, I think everybody should care. I mean, that's what we're talking about here. what's the impact?
That's your
on
opinion,
the
you're entitled to your
on the
opinion. I
community?
don't see anyone nodding their head in agreement, so.
No, I think there's some validity to that. Like, I actually want the hospital to succeed. Like, I think, like, I think the service is great. Like, I'm pretty sure we've all here used the hospital before. I don't have a knock on that. But at the same time, there's one thing to see the hospital area succeed and for them to do a great job and to get something. But yes, I agree. Like, our community shouldn't be destroyed. And you give a little, and eventually over time, you end up giving a lot. And that's what I'm concerned about.
We understand, you're trying to comply with state law. Okay, I get it, I can't believe it, this is the only option, is to take over a large, swath of the community.
But taking over
Taking
the,
over-
purchasing
do you know
those
the traffic,
homes.
The cut-through traffic that we experience on a daily basis,
I'm not
can you
gonna argue.
imagine what it's going to be after this happens?
Mr. Glavis, I will turn the floor to you at this point. Because you, I believe, wrote the last version of the code that capped the hospital. Yes, you did. I remember.
I just want to establish some basic facts, and I'll be asking some people, not necessarily you, nor you, but Mr. Albinsky.
I don't know why you didn't vote.
Mr. Albinsky, my question to you is St. Francis maxed out on their square footage?
95%.
I haven't looked into it, but I don't have an application for me. We're discussing things as different applications in here. I don't have an application. I don't have plans.
And Christine?
Do you know roughly, Christine, the square
Are you
footage?
maxed out right now? You are, okay, so you're maxed out. These are, based on what you had mentioned, is coming down. A new building is coming back up, Mr. Lewandowski mentioned in footprint and height, and you said yes. Do you know right now how much larger that building is planning to happen?
That's what hasn't been finished. This concept is.
Norman, remember, it can't exceed $1,017,000.
Actually, I mean, my original question, I think, has not been validated through the process of this discussion. And the fact that you said, yes, you're increasing, but you can increase if you're maxed out. So somewhere, something is not connected. So either you're holding within the current zoning envelope you have right now, and you're not changing any other properties to increase that envelope, or you want to increase and you need to then therefore increase the zoning envelope. What is it? Which one?
When we are ready to present the design to the community, at that time, we would ask for certain increases, which the community can refuse, to be frank.
So you're looking for a variance.
Visa is on our PowerPoint, the size of that, how many square feet it is. You asked me.
I asked you, based on aggregating the properties, are you looking to make it a bigger footprint and a bigger in height? And you said yes.
Okay, so I wasn't focused on because of the aggregation of property. I was focused on your question about, is the square footage larger than Visa? And I know for a fact the square footage would be larger than Visa in order to have private rooms meet the required dimensions associated with private rooms in a hospital setting, which was kind of the question he was asking.
Norman.
I am not a zoning lawyer, and I could mess up a little bit of my thoughts in this dialogue, and it's not intentional, and it's not intended to be ill will, and it's not intended to be dishonest. We want to be here to share what we know here at this moment, but there's clearly more work to do.
My next question is,
Sure.
how many right now, presently on the campus, are there patient rooms? Or patient can be accommodated, either in a semi-private or private? What's the number that you're working
We
with?
have 324 staff beds, and we're licensed for 364.
350?
60.
364.
60. Okay. The semi-private rooms are spread throughout the campus in gold and the gold color?
Correct.
Are you planning on renovating those or just eliminating a bed and just making a very large room for one person?
It depends on the area and the wing specifically, and it goes to a little bit of a decanting strategy that the teams have been studying. It's pretty complicated around staffing ratios on a per floor basis, private to semi-private. Ideally, every med-surg room would be private, but based on the census and the need of the patient population, it's kind of impossible to say every room would be private. But what we do, correct, we would decant a semi-private to become a private wherever possible.
And in the new visa footprint, how many of those 360 that you allowed to put in will be put into that right now, if you know? If it's still in the phase of design?
It's still in that early
Okay,
phase,
so
and
you
it'll
don't
tie to
know.
affordability.
I was around in 2000, when you came before us.
Garages and
Your predecessor
attics.
came before us, and I
We have people
look
here.
upon it with admiration. The shirts were here and the skins were there. The consultants, the traffic people, the designers, the contractors were in their nicest, best suits and shirts and whatever. And us people and the board were doing the best to try to understand what St. Francis was coming before us with that many years ago. And I remember vividly a traffic study that was a three-dimensional virtual traffic study, probably the cutting edge at the time. My question is, when you do your traffic analysis now, are you going to look back or use the same traffic study guy? And was he close to analyzing what the future would be? And is it better to use the same guy or not use the same guy? This is minor.
No, it's a good question, and we've only done the first round of traffic studies around counts, and we actually did use somebody that was involved in the first phase of modernization, who was familiar with those counts as a basis so that we could build upon the past and acknowledge what occurred in the past. It's not to say we wouldn't evolve that process, but that is some of the actions we've taken.
I don't claim to know the complexity of the campus itself, but today I was going south on Port Washington Boulevard, and there were 3 cars in the intersection trying to get into the main entrance. I don't know if they were going for the emergency room or just to go to the parking area. As a possible stopgap of this kind of congestion, can a boxed area be done or required of the DOT so that people infringe upon it? They go, oh, I should be over here, you know. So 3 cars, go back, it stopped everything until whatever the bottleneck was on campus, you know. And in addition to that question, is the what do you call it, the emergency room being reevaluated for location purposes? Right.
The emergency room was recently expanded. I think that's part of the ongoing study is figuring out how to acknowledge the emergency room's constraints while also acknowledging the whole campus constraints within the traffic that you identified also. That's why we dedicated a slide to ongoing discussions with DOT and the village, because we do acknowledge that there are some challenges with getting on and off the campus. And we want to work closely with DOT and the community and thinking through some of those challenges. We appreciate some of the enhancements DOT is going to embark upon, but we know there's more work to be done in this area.
I also think that we'll have a lot of traffic off campus by the time that the village, St. Francis, and the DOT could come to any resolution. Because the initial moves are imminent, and it's going to be in the second quarter of this year, moving through next year. In terms of emergency department, a hospital of our caliber needs an attached emergency department. But Catholic Health is expanding urgent cares throughout Long Island. And we suspect at some point, and we're all in the planning stages still, that there'll be some type of St. Francis urgent care that will be able to help that too.
Because you realize everybody wants St. Francis. You reach the plateau, you're the shining star at the top of the mountain, and they all want to come here.
And I want to keep it that way. And when people come to our campus to receive care, I want them to receive great care. And that's why
We are here without filing an application, giving you a preview of what we know right now to be as transparent as we can be. We have taken the feedback on the homes, and we will discuss what we can do with the homes. But what our intent is to be able to do a project that keeps St. Francis being the gem that it is, and at the same time, does not impact life in the village. And that's, we're planning, and we've done a lot of thinking about this in order to try and accomplish that. But it's gonna be a long haul, there's a lot of steps here.
All right, I'm gonna end this meeting very shortly, but I'm gonna let Lisa speak. And Joel, you can speak if you have something new, but you're not gonna rail on this whole situation. Lisa, go ahead.
Hi. Yeah, I have a question. You keep on bringing up the studies that you've done. I'm assuming that you've contracted a lot of different companies to try to bring this all together. When you put it out to them, and keeping in mind the state regulations and how you need to have certain amount of rooms, have you included, did you include Oak Tree Lane and the properties that you own in that? Like, was that included, was that given to them as part of the land that you have so you could meet those requirements for the state? Not as a residential, just as land that you own that backs up to your property. Did you include that when they've done the studies for this?
They are aware of the homes that we've secured.
So they've included that in the numbers, like in the amounts?
They're aware of the properties that we've secured that still have a residential use. We directed them that we have no plans to close Oak Tree Lane, and we've directed them that the meets and bounds of a new plan is to stay within the current St. Francis properties, not inclusive of the South Oak Tree homes. So there's nuances here. You asked me if we included their existence. We did explain that to the consultants.
And did it have an impact on the renovations that you're able to do because you were able to include that land?
We don't know yet if we can include that land legally. We have to see.
No, I'm just saying, when you put the study out there, when you asked the person with the company to do that study, and based on the fact that you have certain mandates that you have to meet by the state, did they include that land as part of the considerations?
No, the plans really have been about what the hospital programming is needed in that building. That's where we're at. And some people talked about how the skyline is gonna get higher, and, our intent, again, is to stop the skyline consistent and also have a foliage plan so we can try and block any visualization of the campus as much as possible.
All right.
David,
David, I'm running this meeting.
Oh, excuse me, Randall.
Lisa, is your question
I'm
answered?
sorry, yeah, I'm a little confused because I just feel like St. Francis is a wonderful hospital and we love that it's in the area. I'm a little confused with the fact that you can spend, I'm assuming $20 million on residential houses, 15 cents, to be a little lower. And you're not in the business of renting houses to priests and nuns and doctors. That's not your business, that's not your focus. So my point is, and I know you can't say anything, but I just feel like you're acting as if you do own those properties. And, like if you're doing studies and you're building and making plans based on the fact that you have that extra space, I think that that's something that, I think you need to be a little more transparent about that, because it's nothing to take down a house and include it in. And you own properties that don't back up to the building, you own it across the street too. So why would you buy properties across the street if you didn't have any intention of doing something with Oak Tree Lane? Why would you care about the houses on the other side of the street? So that's what I'm a little confused about. So, you know, like, I don't understand, and we're here for the long term. This is where we work. This is where we live. These are our property values. So it's a little concerning that it's great that you came here, but you need to be able to talk a little bit more about the long term in real terms.
Sure.
About what you're really going to do, because you're making plans, you're not spending all that money if you don't have a plan for it. It's not, you know, you're not talking about a couple of $100,000, you're talking about millions of dollars. You need to be able to talk about that.
The land
All right,
purchase-
Two more
David.
questions, yeah, because we're running out of time. So if you haven't
David.
spoken.
David, please speak.
Mayor, you keep now.
I want to get to the new people before I get to you.
Easy,
I already spoke
I'm not
once.
intimately involved in the situation, but I hear all these comments about these houses. Why don't you just raise these houses and then you don't have a problem?
David, they can't do that.
They can't tear a house down?
No.
No.
Our building code does not,
That's
I'm yelling because I know you can't hear me sometimes.
Thank you.
Building code does not allow the demolition of a home unless there is a plan to build a new home. We do not allow empty lots in this village.
Thank you.
So, yes, ma'am.
Sarah Neisner, I live on Crab Apple Road, and I don't think that we heard an answer to the woman's question, and that was mine too. Like, when you guys went to your board and you asked for the funding to be able to buy the homes, what was the rationale behind it? Because we appreciate you're here, we know it's early for you to be coming and all of that, and I'm comforted by your words when you say them, but at the same time, like, it just doesn't make sense of why you would invest that money and then not have a clear answer of what it is. And if you, so that's just, I think, what we want to hear.
It was really very simple at the time. We wanted to expand the geographic footprint in terms of the land of the hospital, okay? We have residential needs for the homes. You know, you can say it's despicable for me to talk about putting nuns and priests in these homes, but 40 years ago, the nuns, when there were many more nuns, they all lived on campus. There was a swimming pool. If you come in to visit the pavilion, I can show you photos of it. There are still nuns and priests that service the campus for pastoral care, for daily masses, etc. We need to position those folks somewhere, those religious folks somewhere. Oak Tree Lane made sense for the initial sisters. We have additional sisters and priests that are gonna need to be positioned for us to decompress the campus. Because they're
11
in
houses,
this.
if there are 11 houses, you'd just be over $3 million per house. That would count. No, that's in 20, okay, sorry. 10 houses, but they're not used, so that's why I think, I know we just keep asking the same question and not getting the answer.
Well, I think if we looked at the use of the home, and get that for use, but the majority are occupied. Okay, the one that's been, when we bought it on the corner of Fort Washington and Oak Tree Lane, that was, you know, vacant for 10 years. You're right, we haven't put together a plan on that. There's another home that was gonna be a tear down, okay, that we ended up purchasing, that we have to do something with, because, you know, I mean, they had opened up the whole back of the home. But we're allowing the homeowners to stay in the homes for a period of time to make their transition. And then other homes we're using for residential uses already. One of our health system employees, the sisters, we're gonna have other residential uses. 1 minute. Because we don't have. And that's it. And we'll, you know, we've taken the feedback, we will do something to make the lane more and the community there more presentable.
All right, are there any new speakers? New speakers, you are not a new speaker.
Can I say something?
Of course.
And Frank and I were just talking, because I did think of this a while, and I'm sure, you know, you've already said this is not happening this year, but this is the preliminary first salvo, if you will. The mayor decided to get everybody together to have public opinion. Certainly you've learned a lot from, you know, the viewpoint. But it sounds as though maybe I'm missing something. Nothing is 100% set in stone. So what if somebody were to come to you and say, zoning doesn't, you said that loudly and clearly, zoning does not allow that oak tree to be anything for hospital, right? Residential, you said that. What if we were able to, they were willing to tear down all the homes, make a park out of it, put underground parking, and then use the parking facility that currently exists on your property and transition that into some other use, because then you wouldn't be changed. I mean, I'm just saying that's a crazy idea, but look, it doesn't sound like, but it doesn't sound like you are set. You haven't come up with a solution, because we're not gonna say, hey, go ahead and build, we can't say that, it's not in our code. And you have, when you're.
To the mayor's point at the beginning of the meeting, we have no intent right now to put a structure up on Oak Tree Lane. Our intent,
But right now.
our intent,
But they can't.
we're talking about decades, okay? This first decade, our plan is just to be able to work through a process with the Board of Trustees, the village, to be able to take down a dated, antiquated structure and put up something that's more contemporary that allows us to provide that here.
All right, Joel, last
So
question, make it
I
quick.
am a lawyer, and what I'm hearing here, and I thank Gary for his comments and the gentleman there, is I think there's not full transparency here, because you opened up by saying you bought the properties to give yourself the 18 acres, but then what I'm hearing is you can't really use that. You have a hospital district of 15 acres, and that restricts your building. So in order to build higher, you're going to have to change the zoning of the Oak Tree properties to hospital district. That's how else are they going to include that in their acreage to build a bigger building?
We're talking about, there's two different things that are being discussed in that question. So what I was saying is that the surrounding area, Oak Tree Lane, okay, is residential. It's a residential zone. It can't be used for hospital. If in the hospital district, they wish to apply to exceed the permissible height within that district, that would be within the hospital district, but it is not permissible without appropriate approvals through the Board of Trustees and potentially through the Zoning Board of Appeals, because currently it wouldn't be allowed. So I was talking about the use of Oak Tree Lane, that's residential. If you're talking about changes within the hospital district, they must, for any change, construction, reconstruction, modification, landscape, anything, has to come to the Board of Trustees.
Right, but did they buy that property so they could increase their acreage so they could build high?
That they said they purchased that property to increase their acreage. But what I also heard is that for at least the next decade, their current plan, and I'm not with the hospital, so I don't know, is that it's being maintained as residential. But I think what people here are saying is what if and what's going to happen down the road. And I am also hearing that village residents want to be sure that the hospital will commit itself to being entirely transparent, so that any time there is going to be an application or a change or a presentation, that I think that what the board is making clear is that needs to be made known to the village early on, so that residents can look at it. See, is there going to be a change? But right now, without an application, I would be kind of guessing as to what their ultimate plan is going to be. And I get the tension about that. But without an application, without the board having a chance to look at it, we're not yet able to analyze it for you. The board would, that's the board's job, and they're going to do that. And I expect it will be done very, very carefully with whatever assistance the board would need. But there needs to be that specificity for us to look at.
All right, I want to thank everybody for coming. I want to thank the hospital. I appreciate your efforts to keep the community involved by coming here, by updating the website that you have, and I promise everyone here and everyone to TV land, I will continue to keep residents updated and notified, sign up for the mayoral newsletter. And every month, if there's anything new, I put it in there. So thank you very much. Christine, just leave it. I'll
Thank you
disconnect.
for your time.
all of your time.
Thank you, Dr.
And
LaCour.
your feedback. It's going to be very helpful. We appreciate it.
All right.
If you have any questions, please, outside, because we have a board meeting we have to start now, so if you have
Thank
any
you.
questions, please take it outside the boardroom.
All right, I'm going to make a motion to go into the public hearing portion of the meeting. Wake up. You're on. Seconded by Ms. Dorfman. No, David, not yet. Public hearing. Don't worry. You'll speak like you always do. Don't worry, David.
Excuse me, can you take conversations out of the meeting room, please?
So tell me what part to first. Feel that? Good. Are we doing local law one? I don't think we have copies of this. All right. You're staying?
There's still,
Let's see what else is going on.
Lisa knows what's going on. Doesn't she tell you? Come on.
I read your email.
At least somebody
Read
does.
your email.
Thank you. All right. You're leaving us? All
I
right.
thought you wanted me.
No, we
You
love when
can
the
stay.
Chiacos are
Stay.
here. Our favorite residents.
Good
Bye.
night.
All right.
Eyes and ears.
So
I'll see you, Don.
we were going to, so in public hearing, we were going to discuss proposed local law one, storage containers and dumpsters. Unfortunately, we don't.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. We were going to discuss storage containers and dumpsters, but we don't have a copy of the law, so we're not going to discuss them. Item 2, we were supposed to have a site plan review application from Lamani. Lamani is not able to appear tonight, but they sent us a letter, which the board members have a copy of. I guess I could, do you want me to read it into the record, Ms. Wilson?
The whole letter?
No, you don't.
It's one whole quick page. No?
We'll just put it into.
We'll
Summarize.
put it in the
what
record.
it is.
So basically, they are if you remember from Lamani months ago, what they were looking to do was to legalize what was supposed to be a temporary building. They needed additional parking spaces. The board asked Lamani to get in writing agreements with adjacent property owners to allow the valet parkers to park the cars there. They are not yet, they have 2 out of 3 people signing an affirmative. They are looking possibly to remove part of the portion of the fence between their parking lot and where Provident Bank is.
Right.
And to be able to use that area, and instead of having to drive the cars onto Northern Boulevard, they would drive the cars between the
Right,
property.
it would be in the back.
That makes sense.
However,
Drive them where?
instead of on Northern Boulevard between the 2 properties. I'm sorry, I have to speak towards you. It's an interesting suggestion. However, they would end up removing some parking spots, which would change the parking calculations. They'll have to speak to Peter. Allegedly, they might be going for a variance first before the board. Explain this.
Yeah, I need a plan. I need a plan of what they're gonna do, if they're gonna go between the spaces, what spaces are lost on each side.
But they're supposed to, they owe us more information, and we were supposed to have a public hearing. Again, they couldn't be here. They sent this lovely letter instead. It is what it is. Guys, sorry. Number 3, we were supposed to have the Forellis here about the decorative fence on Country Club.
No, he wasn't coming, was he? He doesn't need to come, that's wrong.
You could just make a decision.
Oh, all right, then
It's before the board, so,
who's going to present what they're looking for?
we have the email with the small little picture. So this went 2 times before, I was charged with reviewing it to determine if it fell under our decorative fence provision of the code, which is subject to your approval. So I was asked to judge it. It went through, I asked for advice from the Architecture Review Committee. We saw it 2 times. The last time we got that sketch that you have in there, which is small, but what it does is it does meet the criteria, which is no more than 4 feet high, and it's at least 40% open. We did ask for 1 revision. We asked for a change in spacing of the pickets, which are 1.5 inch square pickets, like a residential type picket. to increase it to a 4-inch on-center spacing rather than a 3-inch, 3.5-inch, I think we have. So based on that, we deem that to be a decorative fence/gate from the standpoint, for the architectural standpoint.
So for the record, what, this diagram here that looks opaque, it is truly not.
Well, there's a lot of lines there, yeah, so that would, if, at 3.5 inches on center, it would be 1.5 inches with 2.5 inches space.
Okay.
A 2-inch space between, so we increased it another 1/2 inch, so it's 2.5 inches between pickets.
So my
But it
understanding.
would still be a lot of lines in the drawing.
My understanding also is this fence is very, gate, this fence. Gate is very similar to something that this board approved on Elderfields Lane within the last 2 years, correct?
Not exactly correct.
Okay.
That fence went to zoning.
Thank you.
And was approved by zoning board, not by this board.
We had approved the piers.
Yeah.
Okay, my mistake.
Yeah.
So
But
this.
that fence was a similar design where it's higher on the sides and then it dips in the middle, which is what I use as an example for this applicant to use as a guide.
So then this gate is similar to something that zoning has approved elsewhere in the village.
Yeah.
It's not unique.
The fence that I referred to is actually a taller version of that. It started out at 5 and went down to like 4.
Okay.
So we felt that was appropriate because it met both what we deemed to be decorative and the ordinance that says it gives a criteria of maximum 4 feet.
Does anyone on the board have any questions or comments? And I'm guessing Gary does because I'm looking to the right person.
So what was for this variance?
I can't hear you, Mr. Lewis.
What was the variance on Elderfields? What was?
Fence in the front yard.
And it was based on, because it was too tall to be usable?
It was a front yard.
Oh.
Front yard.
Front yard fences are not allowed per code.
Yeah, that's right.
But this went to BZA, right?
I didn't hear you. I'm having so much trouble hearing you.
This went to BZA, right? This one?
It did and it was denied.
Well, it was denied because of a different design. It was a different height.
Different, it was, height and.
But they're still looking for a variance for a fence in the front yard.
No.
No, come on.
In the code, there's a provision that they can have a decorative fence in the front yard, subject to approval by this board.
So can I just read what it allows? So the code says that, while it says that no fence can be erected in the front yard of any property within the village, but then it says, notwithstanding anything to the contrary, a decorative, non-property line fence, which this would be, that does not exceed 4 feet in height, which this is, nor 40% opacity, which Mr. Obinsky just said this does not exceed, may be permitted in whole or in part upon a finding by the Board of Trustees after submission of a building permit application thereto, that the existence of such decorative fence will not adversely impact upon the community or upon the neighbors. So this board's allowed to do this if you wish, as long as you find it doesn't adversely impact.
Okay, yeah.
Frank, you had a
Could we
question?
put more conditions?
No, I mean, this is the driveway when they presented a few months ago. It curves around and in. You're barely going to see this thing from the street, correct? Am I?
It's 2 houses from Port Boulevard right across the street.
It's set back.
It's set back. I mean, if there's the big shrubs or something
Yes.
around it. Yeah. Okay.
Well, it's like the one we did on
Stonytown.
Stonytown too. You know, you don't really see these fences, so.
Yeah, that one's set
Who cares?
very far back.
So do we have to vote on this?
Yeah.
We're going to get there eventually. Do we have any other board questions or comments? Is there anyone from the public that has a question or comment?
This is a public comment? No.
Not yet.
I don't hear so.
Max, get the guy some hearing aids already.
I've been working.
David and I have had this discussion once already. Would someone on the board like to make a motion to?
I would like to make the motion to approve this.
I'll second.
And I would just ask if in conjunction with that, would there be a secret determination that this is either unlisted or type 2 and has no significant impact on the environment?
I'll second it, Marlo.
Thank you.
Just so I'm clear, are there nuns living at this house?
No.
Am I mixing up? I withdraw my comment.
Strike that from the record.
So there was a motion and a
Commentary.
second. There was a motion and a second.
Second.
Frank.
Frank second.
Trustee Smith,
Sure, aye.
trustee Lewandowski,
Aye.
trustee Dorfman,
Aye.
trustee Frankel,
Aye.
trustee Collins,
Aye.
deputy mayor,
Aye.
mayor.
Aye. I'd like to make a motion to end the public hearing portion of this meeting.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, what's it going?
Public comment? No, we're going to do public at the end of the meeting today, David. Okay, no public comments for David Frank.
Thank you.
Keep it to 3 minutes.
No, 3.5.
No.
All I'm gonna do is read 2 things. This is not about the public safety pro or con. But I did do my due diligence and it's an AI exercise on the internet. And I'm gonna read you 2 paragraphs, and I'm gonna leave this verbiage. And maybe you might wanna consider in your process and in your thinking the following. To evaluate the cost of drive-around private security services against potential crime reduction benefits in community decision-making, you need to conduct a cost-benefit analysis, considering factors like crime statistics in the area, the cost per patrol hour, potential crime detriment effects, and the impact on community perception of safety, while also factoring in potential limitations and data collection challenges associated with accurately measuring crime reduction due to private security patrols. And one step further from that is who would do this? A criminologist with expertise in community crime prevention is best suited to evaluate the cost of a drive-around private security service against the potential crime reduction benefits in community decision-making, as they can analyze the specific crime patterns, demographics, and potential effectiveness of such services within the community. And they list 7 points that would be looked at. And I propose.
David, can you email that to us?
I can't hear you.
Can you email that to us?
I'm gonna give it to you. I don't have a duplicate, so. The purpose, because I saw Mayor Randall's notice in January about how our security guys chased somebody off. Could have been innocent, could have been guilty, who knows what it is. I think we shoot from the hip too often, myself included. I think there's a cost-benefit analysis to do. I think as I'm not an expert at statistical data, but you could almost stop your security control right now and use the last 12 months as a benchmark and hire for a whole lot less money a criminologist. And I was gonna call John Jay College up to see where you find a criminologist and get a study done. And then you'll have something conclusive that you can hang your hat on. It's too much shooting from the hip, myself included. I'm proposing that you think about going this way. And now's a good time, coincidentally, to end security so you can benchmark 12 months off of 12 months, whatever you like. It's a thought, and I leave that with you, and I'm probably 4 minutes.
No, you're under 3 minutes, David, by 5 seconds. So thank you very much. You know, it's a
Very welcome.
pleasure to always hear from you.
My pleasure. Good luck.
Thank you.
And how you guys sat with the St. Francis conversation is beyond me.
All right. Thank you for public comment. Approval of the minutes. Has everyone had a chance to read the meeting minutes of the January 6th Board of Trustees meeting? And if so, does anyone have any changes? I hear silence. That being said, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes, seconded by, that'd be Mr. Frankel. All in favor?
Aye.
Next, the abstract. Motion to approve claims, the amount of $164,743.08. As always, I have reviewed them, the treasurer has reviewed them, our village administrator has approved them, and the issuer of the request has reviewed and signed off on it as well. So i.e. anything that Nick is ordering, he's signing off on these to make sure that the bills are correct. Do I have I'll make a motion to approve this, seconded by
I'll second it.
Mr. Deputy Mayor Janice. All in favor? And Max, you can vote this time fully because Ms. Frankel is not on this.
Received my inheritance a little bit this month.
Yes, we did.
Also, I didn't get any of the cake that we're reimbursed.
I'm sorry that you weren't here for
I
that.
know.
We'll invite you next time.
But I vote aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any against or opposed or abstaining? No. Excellent. Next, we have a resolution in here to appoint our 2 inspectors, I believe it is, correct, Mara? For the March 18th village election. I believe these are the same gentlemen that we've used in the past, who are a pleasure to deal with, very professional.
Mr. Mayor, the resolution says we're resolved to give them $125, and then in parentheses says $250.
I'm sorry, it's 250, I will make that change, not there.
125 each.
So we can't make a meeting.
No.
No, that's my question, is 125 each or is it?
No, the 125 was from like 20 years ago.
Thank you for catching that, Trustee Smith. I will make a motion to approve this resolution
At 250.
at 250.
So,
All in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. Next, we had the discussion last month about amending our fee schedule in order to equal what some other villages were doing, as well as simplifying some of the fees so that we were going to collect the C of O or C of C monies up front. So that would save a resident a second trip to the village in order to pay for that they normally have to do now. Everything in red. We had some suggestions last month to remove some of the potential fees, new fees, and we removed all that. So I don't know if anybody has any questions on this updated and simpler to read fee schedule.
I mean, I think last time you talked about, checked with, this is in keeping with other villages, right? Bringing
Yes.
us to a level that other villages
We're
were
just
already, right?
below Muncie.
Yeah.
If I could correct it, it didn't change the numbers for residential addition. It just, all we did was add the CO fee. So with this change, a new house, an addition, didn't change. We just added the CO fee up front. So they didn't have to pay later for a CO fee. So those fees didn't change. We did increase the commercial fee, and then we added fees, some fixed fees for, some things went up, some minor stuff, and then things on subdivisions we added, which was silent on before. But again, the basic residential fee is the same. We did that bump up a little while back.
Yes, this was only on the commercial.
Right.
This was to be more in line with, as I said, Muncie, who has very similar commercial construction that we have, but their fees were more in line to what the market is.
We
Marla?
took out the dumpster fees, and dumpster fees associated with the permit, building permit.
Right, and that was part of the streamlining effort, because if a resident already has a building permit, we don't need to really nickel and dime them on a dumpster. And I think last month, I don't have the piece of paper, it's like $3,000 and less revenue I think we would have. And this way, it's simpler to tie the dumpster with the building permit, so you don't have things that aren't necessarily tied.
So in that way, the
properly.
fee went down.
Correct.
In essence, there's a little
A
adjustment.
little bit, you know, where-
But it was de
What was it
minimis.
a month? It was,
It's $75 for,
we were paying by the month, I think it was, so.
Yes,
The
but it-
the only reason you would have a dumpster is if you didn't have a building permit, let's say you're cleaning your house out or something, then you would get it, then we'd still have a building permit in there. But if it's tied to a building permit, we're no longer requiring them to pay a separate fee. It was kind of a nuisance for us too, because it was like a month at a time, and so.
Yeah, and we had residents who
feels like a money.
thought it was a little bit of a pain. So it's just a little streamlining there. But again, we took out some of the questions you two had to my left about the discussion fees and those
Right.
fees. So we pulled
Yeah,
that out.
yeah,
And
that's
that, which is exactly the feedback I was looking for.
Okay.
So if I have no other questions on this, I would like to make a motion to pass this new fee schedule.
And Mayor, in conjunction with.
Yes, sir.
This would be deemed a type 2 action having no.
As always, thank you for pointing that out. Do I have a second on this?
Second.
Mr. Lewandowski? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? No. Excellent. I guess I will discuss, and I guess, Jeff, we don't have a copy of the law to actually, no. The obstructed plates.
I can tell you what the language is, if you wish, if we can schedule the hearing. It would just simply be the following, that within the village, any car cover placed upon a vehicle must have an opening so that the license is clearly visible from the street. And if there is no such opening, that there will be a presumption that the vehicle is not licensed.
Does that apply to people who have these covers now on their license plates, like this one that I took a picture of today?
That wouldn't be for
No.
those covered plates. Sorry, cover. That's a violation of the VTO.
Right.
And we cannot, that's state, we can't make our own laws for that.
We can't duplicate that in the village code,
Right.
but the police do write for that pretty often.
So should I be making a motion to hold that public hearing
Yes,
at the March 3rd Board of Trustees meeting?
Yes, please.
Okay, I will make that motion, seconded by, I think I heard Mr. Frankel. All in favor?
Aye.
And do we have to make a motion to do the local law 1 storage containers and dumpsters at the next meeting, or that's okay because we didn't do it at this?
I think we already did it, if it could just be passed to the next.
Okay, I didn't know if we needed to vote on that. Okay, wonderful. We are not going to discuss the next 3 items on the agenda. We are not ready to discuss that yet. Port Washington Fire Department, the 2025-2026 contract. I apologize. I did know what the percent increase was, and it was.
The meeting is actually Wednesday. The meeting's Wednesday, so.
Well, I already met with them
Oh,
for the
okay.
preliminary budget. It was a small percent increase, and I thought I knew it, and I didn't write it down, so shame on me.
It's not
But
in the,
I'm not sure if it's
300,
in.
it's now 300, that's 5%, no.
No.
It's, what do we pay now? It's 190 twice a year.
Fire contract. What do we pay now? I don't know what the top of my head.
Yeah, I apologize. I know I mentioned it 2 months ago that it was a small percent. I thought it was under 5.
Is it in here?
Right here.
Should be.
Right.
Is it there?
The percentage increase from
Oh.
last year.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
No, that's the interest.
Should be in here, fire department.
Wouldn't be in here.
Yeah, low SEP pension fund benefits.
No, not LoSAP. LoSAP is separate.
Yeah, no, I don't see, I don't see it. All right, whatever.
Again, I believe it's less than 5. Gee, I wish I remembered.
Here, fire contract, Port Washington.
Yep.
Budgeted 372. And this is 381, so it's $9,000 difference.
Yeah.
2.5%.
All right, so it's correct, it's under 5%.
That's pretty good.
No, it's very good. And again, thank you, Port Washington Fire Department, for the, what's the term that they're doing with the ambulances?
Oh, right.
Cost recovery. Cost recovery. The cost recovery program that they enacted is keeping down the expenses of the fire department. It's increasing their revenues. The revenues come 100% from the insurance company. And I appeal to our friends up in Albany to extend the law to allow this practice to continue. I believe it is, the statute forces it to stop in either into 2025 or sometimes early in 2026. So hopefully Albany changes the law and extends it so that fire departments can continue to do this cost recovery to help keep taxes in check. So I'll make the motion to approve the fire contract, seconded by
I'll second.
Mayor Joe Collins. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstain? No. Mr. Albinski, ARC report, please.
ARC report, we have 5 items. 32 Birchdale Lane, that was to legalize, that was their second time back. That was, they made corrections, I actually since got these corrections, and that was approved with those being met. 21 Brookside, there was a detached 3-car garage that was replacing an existing 2-car garage, I think it was. That had some conditions and to you for approval. 67 Dogwood Lane, first and second floor additions. We had a number of comments. We wanted some more information, some things to show us what was going on there, and there was some inconsistency in the drawings. So we asked that to return. 107 Hemlock, siding, roof line, and porches. A couple comments approved with those conditions. And 87 Port Washington Boulevard, additions, alterations, and a detached garage. I've noted that they need a variance. They came to us prior to going for a variance, which was for the garage for setbacks, but they still have to come back. I just have to tell you that they termed the design as deconstructive French. So just basically, didn't work for
On
us.
Hemlock? You talking about Hemlock?
No, Port
No.
Boulevard.
Oh,
87 Port
Boulevard.
Boulevard.
Sorry.
Deconstructive French, I never heard that term, but, you know, the design didn't work.
Just make up anything you want.
That sounds like something Frank would say.
Yeah.
Frank, you don't make up these terms? Deconstructed French?
Sounds like a good restaurant.
Not often, we try not to. I would have called it deconstructed, not deconstructed.
Okay. Are there any questions from the Board of Trustees on any of these applications? Any questions from the public? That there's none here. That being
There's
said,
no public here, could I just get some side comments for St. Francis presentation?
let's approve this first, and then we can do that. I'm gonna make a motion to approve item 1, item 2, and item 3. Do I have a second? The longer we wait, the longer we stay.
Second?
Second, I'll second.
Thank you, Trustee Smith. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any
I abstain.
opposed? Trustee Lewandowski will abstain. Did you want to make any comments, Peter?
No, I'll do that another time.
Okay. How about comedy? No comedy?
I'll do that another time.
Excellent. You have a copy of the DPW report. Our superintendent was here at 3 a.m. to deal with the snow we had last night, so I relieved him of coming to our meeting.
And many of us realized that at 4:05 this morning.
Yes.
Rich wanted to come in at like 9 o'clock last
I have
night.
to ask Richie why he waits till he gets to the front of my house to drop the plane down onto the road. We both woke up like, is there
He
another
does-
plane crash?
He does that on purpose because you bothered him about signs and stuff. Be nice to Rich and he'll be quiet.
And he plowed Cherrywood like 6 times. It's like this-
I would like to state, as someone who lives near the border of Flower Hill, we do a much better job of plowing.
Oh, yeah, we do a great
He
job.
did-
Always did.
They-
It's amazing.
They do no job.
Yeah.
Always did.
It's not so much to me, it's 4 houses, and I'm on a different place, and I just, we joke about things, but the village.
No, we do a great job. compared to
Oh, we
other
always did.
villages.
We always did.
And I do direct them to push the snow in the direction of your house.
And if it was up to Rich, he would have been here at 9 o'clock last night. Marla and I had to tell him, get a good night's sleep, come in early, do not come here at 9 p.m. He wanted to start plowing then, so.
Can I ask something about the Jana, the garbage?
How about-
Apparently Bennett is back. first of all.
So Benny is back.
Yeah.
It was a very long lobbying effort on my behalf for 2 years. And when they switched over from Dejana to Meadow, I was able to help convince Meadow that it would be a very big favor to the village if that could happen. And he was able to make it happen.
Yeah.
So
Was he good, Ben?
So, Mike,
Benny was he doesn't do our site, he does on the other
Yeah,
side.
that was, he good.
He's very favored by the residents. Actually,
More than Al?
yes.
Albert's pretty popular,
The
too.
largest complaint we had at the time when we switched over originally from Meadow back to John because of the contract was most of the complaints I got from residents is, but what about Benny?
Right.
I said, I can't force an employee to jump from one company to another.
Mm.
And John tried, they couldn't get it, but they listened to us.
Became a free agent?
He
got
just did.
NIL.
He finished his the veteran's maximum extension, like Luka Doncic. And yeah, so we were able to sign him.
So here's my original question. I had a resident call and before she spoke to you, Marla, she spoke to, I don't know if it was Suzanne or whoever picked up the phone because she wanted to know why was something about, did we have something about the garbage coming before 7 a.m.? So you told her they couldn't come before 7, but whoever picked up the phone said, yes, they can come before 7. I don't recollect, did we as a board?
Our contract states 7 a.m.
Never seen.
Oh, it does. I didn't remember, I really didn't know the answer.
When it's extreme heat, we have given on a case-by-case basis approval. This was to John before Meadow, to pick up early because of the extreme heat. Because we don't want to kill these workers while they're out running, collecting garbage. And that was on a week-by-week, case-by-case basis. We granted it, I don't think this year, it was probably the year before, a few days here and there, and it was okay. We have been corresponding with Meadow to remind them of their obligation to pick up garbage after 7 a.m.
Unfortunately, they have to start somewhere.
Yeah, but why does it matter, like, why is 7, like, is 7 o'clock like a normal?
It's actually late, most garbage companies start at 6:30.
Right, so why are we starting at 7? Just asking, I don't care if they come at 7. Because it's not like you gotta put your garbage out on the curb, they come to your house and pick it up.
Okay.
So what's
So
the difference?
my guess is 7 was in the contract because my guess is the contract before that said 7 o'clock.
Right.
And my guess is the contract before that said 7 o'clock. And these are like 5-year contracts. I'll get to you in 1 second. There are some residents who do not leave their garbage by the rear or side of the house. As we're allowed, we're in the contract, that's where it's supposed to be picked up. There's some residents who want to take their garbage to the curb, and there's some residents who want to take the garbage out and leave it by the garage early in the morning. So it's earlier than 7 a.m. pickup. Their complaint has been, I missed the garbage guy. Now the garbage is sitting out there for 2 days. So that's part of the reason why some people have been concerned about 7. And there's some people who just don't like the noise that early in the morning, though I don't really mind the garbage truck myself.
Yeah, I just wondered.
They're still putting it out on Fridays for Monday pickup, so what's the difference?
They do that just to piss you off, Frank. That's the
Like
person.
all others, like, yeah.
Marla, yes.
2 things. It is my understanding that the reason they all start so early is that it's such grueling work that these guys work. They get paid for like an 8-hour day, but they don't actually work an 8-hour day. So
That's why they run.
Yes.
That's why they run, so they can get
The
through.
sooner they
Correct.
finish,
Once they're
It's
done,
more
they're
like
done.
when you're done, you go kind of thing. So that's the whole reason I think the whole industry starts early. My guy comes partly paid, at 6:15, so, yeah. And we get complaints when it shifts up, if there's a new guy, when people are used to, if your garbage guy comes at 11 all the time, you probably missed a couple when Benny came back. Benny, everything. Anyway.
Okay.
All right, we're gonna go backwards to the to the attorney's report. I apologize,
Yes,
Jeff, for skipping.
Submitted a report on the ZBA hearing, the board took action on 2 properties. Essentially, with respect to each, there was an application 17 over, and the applicant came back twice and minimized the requests and really sought to make sure that the application wouldn't have any impact on the surrounding properties. And the board agreed with that, and on the condition that there would be evergreen screening planted along the rear of the patio, approved it. The second application essentially involved placements of various patios and an outdoor fireplace, and they were seeking initially side yard setback clearance as well as rear setback, and the board was mostly concerned about a rear yard patio that was really tucked against the very corner of the rear of the property, right against the property line, which the board felt would be kind of an imposition to the surrounding neighbors, and the applicant removed it. They said they would remove it, and the board thought that that then alleviated the potential negative impacts and approved the remaining portions of the application.
Excellent. Thank you, Jeff. My mayor's report, I will include in the newsletter the update on the Webster Avenue Bridge, various events I attended, the Public Works update. I do want to announce that we sold the F-450 for $22,600, which is a little higher than what Rich predicted we would get. So thank you to the auction site for getting rid of our truck for us, and we use that money to help offset the cost of outrigging the vehicle with all the safety features that are necessary, that Frank loves so much. I'm going to share with the community. I could have shared it with David, but I didn't want to argue with him. A couple of days ago on Wednesday, and I don't have the date because I'm not looking at my calendar, the patrol at 3:45 in the morning came up upon a car that was parked with their lights out. The car was off. They observed this vehicle from a distance, and then another car pulled up behind the first vehicle. The first car drove away. He followed them for a little bit, and what they did is they just decided to drive through two red traffic lights on Northern Boulevard. So to me, it seems like they were probably up to no good. The officer got a partial plate on the Nissan Rogue. He was able to flag down an NCPD patrol officer and gave them said information. But I don't believe these people were apprehended because they didn't commit any crime. But this is a very good example of our patrol coming up on something that didn't look right and these people running. So thank you to our patrol for that. That's all I'm going to say. I'll leave the rest for the world famous newsletter. Next, do I have any trustee reports? Right, I see none. Look left. I see none.
So I think I sent an email to both of you to respond.
Yeah, I responded. Yeah, this morning, about 10:15, 10:30.
Anyway, about meeting, so we can discuss the beautification.
I said for you and Gary to pick a date because you are the working people, and as long as it's preferably Monday, Wednesday, Friday, that works for myself. We'll gladly
Gary,
sit
we'll
down.
get together.
Yeah. Hopefully at the next board meeting, we will discuss the sewer. At the next board meeting, we'll discuss the sewer feasibility study that's due at the end of February 24th. Sorry.
Budget, that was my second question. When do you anticipate the trustees or for us to be able to look at the budgets? Because when do we vote on it usually? Last year was late. It was the end of March, and we had like a week, and then we had a vote on it.
That's April. Almost always when.
Yeah,
we will probably. I haven't set the dates yet, but it'll probably be that same approximate schedule. Late March for the presentation of the budget to the Board of Trustees, and then we will have the public meeting that the public can speak at the April Board of Trustees meeting.
So if there was something, I know like in Plandome Heights, Barbara has it out in February, and they present it preliminary, so they have it for about, I thought you said over a month. The only reason I'm asking that is if we look at all the lines we've had, and if we want, let's say the beautification, we decide, can we get some money for this effort? I'm just using that as an example, or, when a week would not be enough time for us to say, perhaps we could consider, or what would it look like if we were to recommend some money for beautification. You see what I'm saying?
I can try to assemble our budget earlier than that.
And that's the only reason I'm asking, because a week doesn't really give us time. If we, or if any other trustee has something that they think that should be included or eliminated, it's hard to
So
to
how
respond for a
about
week.
if there's any trustee that has any concerns to email myself, Marla, and Suzanne, because Suzanne actually is the one who puts the budget together, sooner than later. So as we're assembling the budget, I can use your comments and see if the adds, moves, and changes work within the budget.
So I think it would then, it would be, Gary, correct me if I'm wrong, that since we're nowhere with Kevin at this point and nowhere with our committee, we, after our conversation, if it's determined that we need to put money into this, what does that look like? We would need more than, a week to discuss it.
Right.
So that would be, so I would just, I don't know how much that is because I don't know what the result of our meeting is going to be. So I just.
All right, for that topic and any other ones, send me emails with budget requests.
Okay.
Well, maybe one question to ask, is there any surplus from this current budget to do work before the end of the fiscal year?
I can't answer that because I'm not looking at the budget right now. And I don't know what funds we have.
Like, is there anything that was dedicated to the park that hasn't been used?
I can't answer that right now. I can get back to you. The next Board of Trustees meeting is March 3rd, 7 p.m. The office will be closed on 2017 President's Day. No garbage pickup and no construction or landscaping. We will have our code enforcement working that day, so beware people out there.
We're closed on Lincoln Street at 12.
Oh.
Nice working for the
So I'd like to make a motion to end the meeting.
I'll second it.
I figured you would, Frank. All in favor?
All right.
I'm going to shut the computer off.
Gary, Gary.
It told me seriously a couple of times. Got out of the habit.
Last 2 weeks ago.
He can't hear that.
He said next to me.
What time did you
Can I go get Now you could buy it like at a drugstore.
It's